Boom! We're live.
That's the greatest intro ever. Like, bar none. That's the greatest intro ever.
I do dig it. Like I said, I was using that on the AHRA Drag Racing History Channel, I guess, intros to the show. And I just have it sitting around, and I'm like, man, that is such a cool intro. It'd be awesome to use it on everything AHRA, right? So I guess, how was your PRI?
PRI was awesome, but let's talk about your background. You got like a studio now, right?
I do. Well, semi-studio. I've been wanting to set this up for like a long time. And, you know, when I didn't think I was going to make it to PRI and my kids were both sick, I'm like, I'm one of those people that can't sit still. I literally have to have something to do. And if I don't have any plans, it really screws me up, right? Like I got to find something to do. And I'm like, well, I've been wanting to do this studio for quite a while now. Originally, you know, I had set the one up at Tony's just for the lives that we do on Wednesday. And unfortunately, we got, you know, like Tony no longer wanted to do the live. So we just stopped doing them. And I didn't have a studio. So I spent the time to get this studio set up. I got, I don't know if you can see it. I got my big banner over there.
You can see it. Looks good.
Yeah, I got a couple more things that's from it's actually from the studio that we had set up at Tony's. But I think I need to move the camera back more, or I just need to come up with a different camera, something. I don't know.
It looks just fine. Leave it alone. Looks good.
All right, fair enough.
Well, as far as PRI goes, it was awesome. I enjoyed it. It was actually really good to go and actually go to PRI and see all the people that I've been missing for the past 3 years. And John Wilburn was with me, and so was Clint. And it was good to see like the 200 people that I had known.
Yeah. Well, that's what John was saying. You're like the mayor of PRI. You know everybody, right? Pretty
close to it. Yeah, it was actually really good. It was I was having a good time, man. You know, it's like I really enjoyed going it with under the guise of the AHRA, because I was able to get really in close and take pictures and talk to people that didn't know who I was. It was first for the most part, but there was people who did. So
since I don't normally go there and shake anybody down for like say sponsorships or anything, they probably just thought you were standing in the background. I've never heard anybody from the AHRA just shaking us down, so we'll just talk to them about whatever. You know, hey, what do you guys got going on that's new? Oh, you wouldn't believe it. We broke the mold with this one. You know?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good time, man. And, you know, I got to tell you, man, we had an awesome hotel. We had John there.
I'm thinking next year we got to do the same thing. We weren't far from the place. And I think if everybody just ponies up some bucks, you know, we get that same kind of hotel room again.
Yeah.
The folks at Bob Evans must have made like $400 or $500 extra a day there because it was like virtually, oh, it's breakfast time, Bob Evans. Oh, it's lunchtime, Bob Evans. Dinner time, yep. Again.
Bob Evans.
Yeah. So it's like when you go to the PRI show, you're excited to get there. When you get back, you're just like, I don't want to do anything, right? I literally just want to go sleep. And I've been inundated, and my all of my senses have been blown out of my head today. So
yeah. Well, and you know, that place that we had, we did a live on Thursday night, and it was really nice because it's like it's split. It's got like a front living room and like a bathroom, and then 2 bedrooms in the back, and it was decently quiet. And it was, you know, there was 3 of us in there, and it was me, you, and John Wilburn, and we had plenty of room, and it was nice. I enjoyed it.
Well, you had that super cool noise making machine, and you brought up like, hey, I said, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to sleep with that, dude. And you're like, trust me, man, it drowns everybody around. And I'm like, oh, you know what? That totally makes sense. And it did. I slept like a freaking rock in a hotel room. So, well, let's get on to greet some people. We got lots of folks in here tonight. Uncle Squirrel, Mopar Man 1978. Colleen Tebow is in here. Danny Boyd. Fab Race Mod Repeat. Chris Cox out of Northeast Dragway. Let's see. Danny Boyd saying shit on the shingle. Yeah, that must be the last time that he saw us on a show. David James, aloha from Iowa. I'm under garage arrest again. So hopefully it's not an ankle bracelet garage arrest. You're just out there drinking a couple of beers while working on something. Mr. Wilburn has checked in. Now we're all we gotta put away all the stuff that would get us in trouble, right?
Yeah. Right. Dad's home.
Yeah, Dad is home. Mostly Old Parts is here. Ron Ward, and well, it's ironic because Mostly Old Parts and Rust, which is Patrick.
He's cool, man. I met him and his wife. They're really awesome people, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was a few of us, I guess, YouTube community from No Name Nationals that showed up there at PRI and represented pretty hard. Yep. You had Patrick from Mostly Old Parts and Rust, and then
his wife. Don't forget that his wife was right there. She represents. In fact, next, look, I'm gonna call them out right now since they're on here. Him and his wife are gonna do. He has a Challenger that's a 6-speed, and she has a Challenger that's an automatic, and they're gonna call each other out at the next No Name Nationals and do a heads up 2 out of 3 race, straight up match race between husband and wife. And I said, cool. I'm going to teach her how to drag race. I said, look, I'm going to teach you how to cut a light, and he's going to do the stick shift. So, yes.
Well, that's definitely going to be fun. This year's going to be, hopefully bigger and better. That's what you always hope for. But, like without going to stealing any thunder from, the No Name Nationals lives that we do, that's what we're planning for. We don't want to change a lot of things because we felt that it worked pretty good. A majority of it. There's a few things that's got to change, like tech. We're going to start teching on essentially when we get there on Thursday, right? So that way there is no big long line for tech for a couple of days, and nothing is really cram-packed based on schedule. I mean, we were trying to run cars, and there were still cars getting through tech. So we'll get that ironed out. There is some bigger and better things that we got planned, and John and I have already talked about. We're definitely going to blow some things out, but we should have some exact ironed out information for everybody coming right around the New Year's time. So,
yeah.
And Ron Ward says, hi, Dallas. Hi, Shane. And hopefully Ron had showed a lot of interest in coming back for 2023 No Name National. So I'm hoping that he still feels the same way.
Good
I think he's wanting to get some more meat candy. Right.
The person I really enjoyed meeting was Clint too. Clint was awesome. I enjoyed him.
Clint, yeah, that he is like an oddity. Clint is kind of my hero just because, well, he was in a hair band in the hair band days, right? Yep. And but you and him like hit it off like, hey, we're both musicians. Let's jam, even though we haven't jammed in a long time, kind of stuff.
The thing is that, like, I showed him some of my music, and he was just like, that's awesome. So it's just. We're going in the Wayback Machine. So, yeah, it was cool, man. I dig that guy. Yeah, it's good.
Well, you got Scarlett, the four-eyed Kudos here. Let's see. Dakota is in the house. Dakota's timeout. Howdy, y'all. Howdy, Dakota. I got them. Those were 15x7s, and I got them mounted on some slicks for this 63 Buick. I haven't had any time to really do any I haven't really done any work out in the garage. I've literally been kind of just jamming, trying to get life in order as the winter is come early, and it's put me in a pickle where I have to jump through my butt. And then, like normally you're like I had planned the first week of December, I'm taking that super stock motor to the dyno. So I had it loaded in the back of my truck Thanksgiving weekend. And then the dyno guys called me, hey, we broke the what did he call it? The bellows on the water brake. Right. Okay, so we had to get a whole new setup. And then so it's like, crap. So now it's just sitting in my truck waiting for the dyno guys to get the dyno repaired and then slide me in. Because I literally booked this thing back in July, but I opened up the back of my truck the other day, and it's been raining since pretty much Thanksgiving weekend out here. Right.
Yeah.
Man, that motor's starting to rust up, and I feel bad. I'm like, what, should I pull it out of the trailer, or I mean, out of the back of my truck? I mean, it has a topper on it, but the humidity has got to be scorchingly high when it starts to rain in there.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do at the moment yet. Dr. Art is gracing us with his presence. Let's see here. Kevin, he's saying hero. Let's see. John Wilburn says Portillo's next time.
Yes. No, I agree with him. You know what, John? You're absolutely right, because I looked that up, and that is like an institution, like kind of like for me in Southern California with like In-N-Out. Portillo's is like an institution for that area, because that's like their In-N-Out for like hot dogs and whatever.
That's why we did Lambert's when we went to Sykeston, was because that place is literally the staple food for the area. That's what they're known for. Yeah, wow. Sykeston, the home of the throw rolls. You'll see signs for it for like 200-300 miles before you even get to Sykeston.
I've seen that, but is that all they're known for? Is the rolls, or is their food any good? Or is it just?
Oh, you didn't eat there, did you?
No. Each time we went there, the
yeah,
was out the door, and
you gotta go. You gotta get the Lambert's experience in your mouth hole. All right.
How about this? Next time we do the No Name Nationals, I'll be there for the Thursday for the Lambert's thing. How about that?
All right, because I'm telling you, that was probably, if you're looking at No Name Nationals as a whole, I would say that's probably a good 1/3 of the event.
Yeah,
is that Lambert's? That Lambert's. It was a flash mob car show. We literally didn't tell them that it was happening. John and I had went in there, tried to register, 200 seats. Hey, we want to get 200 seats for all the people coming from No Name Nationals, and hopefully that's enough. Yeah. They're like, we do not reserve any seats, and I'm like,
well, then we're just going to show up,
and you're going to hate what's going to happen. And they're like, you can bring it, and bring it as hard as you want. And I'm like, okay, So we decided to do a flash mob car show at Lambert's. And not only are we bringing No Name Nationals, but everybody around, right?
Yeah.
Well, when we were trying to set up No Name Nationals, there's a guy that actually has a shop behind Jeffers Motorsports Park called.
You guys were telling me this, yeah.
Garage, right?
Yeah.
And Possum said, "Hey, you should call them guys. I got his number. The guy that runs the place. I went to school with him. Let's call him and let him know that you're coming." So I called him, and it was like 2 hours before the whole thing, right? Flash mob is supposed to be just show up and do it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, just give him a heads up. So I called him, and I expected this guy to be like, you guys are a bunch of a-holes. Why the hell would you do that to me? And he was like, dude, that's the coolest thing I ever heard of, right? We're going to section off the whole entire parking lot for you guys, and you can have the entire east side. And he's like, just let me know next time when you want to do it. We'll do it like the whole back lot, or we'll set something up for you. And so I think this year, I think they're going to really enjoy it, because we're going to give them a chance for a heads up. But maybe we can give them an opportunity to throw out some trophies for the thing, something cool like that. Or, they throw a trophy at you. I don't know. Throw a roll at you when you win.
What about this? Why don't we do, me and you, make some trophies again like we did for Match Race? How about that?
Oh, we could probably do that. I don't know. I'm not savvy with I didn't do the wood. I had to have my neighbor do the wood in San Diego.
I'll do the I got all kinds of like camshafts and all that stuff I can weld together. So, we'll work on it. We'll work on the side, but we'll make some really like camshafts, like some trophy stuff. We'll make some cool stuff. How about that?
Let's see. Mostly old parts and rust. Any chances of any passes late on Thursday? That's probably going to be a no. The reason why I say that is, if we do something on Thursday, you got to buy insurance for the entire Thursday, right? Yeah. And it's not like $1.25 for you to make a pass. It's like $1,000 plus. And I mean, it really gets expensive. The whole idea of this thing really was, if you look at it from a big perspective, we didn't charge a lot of money to get in the gate. It really was just more or less a track rental for a bunch of friends to get together and do something fun, right? Yeah. And it'd be enjoyable. That's why it was the way that it was. If we throw a third day in there, oh my gosh, you're probably talking about like another $5,000 on the top, and your entry fee, would be like staggeringly high, and you hate it, right? Well, if you go to and I'll put it in perspective for you. That's how cheap we had it. if you go to an NHRA national event, it's $300 for you to drive in the gate for one day, right?
True.
And the spectate, you're looking at $75 to $100 to spectate.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole deal was like I said, it was more or less just a track went on, a bunch of friends get together, and that was the idea, was to keep it affordable for the common person to come out and have some fun, and that's the way we did it.
Yeah.
So let's see. Jackie Abbott says, Shane, I'm not sure I'm teachable. LOL. I'll give it a try. Okay, so DJ Fruman saying, what was PRI? PRI is the performance trade show, the performance racing industry trade show. Yep. It is the biggest, I guess, racing-centric automotive trade show that there is in the United States.
The real one.
Yeah, SEMA is for the guys that like to have buffed out paint and weld blobs. And yeah, and you look at the other end of the spectrum, and that's PRI. What's sad is SEMA originally started out what PRI really is.
Yeah, that's exactly how it started. It just kind of morphed for some reason. Like, I'm going to say 2012, 13, I started noticing like little shift, and then just became something else. So, yeah.
Yeah. And the sad part of it, so SEMA used to be the aftermarket, and it was put together essentially as one of the founding members was the owner of Krager Mags, right? Krager Wheels. Southern California used to be the hotbed for dragsters, funny cars, and aftermarket accessories for racing. Yep. And those are the people that got together and they established SEMA. And then if you go back and you look at some of the 60s dragsters, the chassis are stamped with a SEMA number. And that's because they were a SEMA member, or most likely a founding member of SEMA. Like a Don Long chassis would have probably a SEMA, number less than 100 because he was probably a founding member of the thing. But it's gotten so far away from that. It's like ridiculous now, but let's see. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Dakota saying, nice. Happy for you, Dallas. God, they were 7s. Measuring wheels is kind of hard. Those Kragers will set it off. Yeah, I'm sure they will. They look good already on the slicks. I'm actually just mocking it all up so I can get a correct width, because if I got to cut that rear end down, that's what I'm shooting for. Oh, I see what they're talking about. Here you go. The Telecaster is probably the most universal electric guitar ever built. So they're talking about guitars, and that's what the pickup was coming from. Let's see. Michael Schmidt, Flathead Plymouth guy here from SoCal. Happy holidays, gents. Happy holidays to you, Mr. Michael.
That's right. SoCal. I was there. I love that place.
Hey, go get a burrito for Shane. You need a carne asada burrito for Shane. Or a fish taco.
Yeah, that's right. I love that place.
So mostly old parts, which is Ron Ward. He's saying if you get the rolls, you got to get the sorghum on them.
What's that?
Sorghum is it's like molasses, I think. It's actually made out of like a plant, and not molasses made out of a tree, right? I think so.
Yeah.
But sorghum is made out of a plant. I can't remember what it's called.
I'll check it out.
But it's a Midwest thing. It's actually a Missouri thing. That's where a majority of that plant is grown at. But they have they grow them in Kansas and stuff. But I mean, Missouri is known for it. Okay. Mopar Man 1978 says, we have a Lambert's down here in Ozark, Missouri, a few miles north of me. Dude, do you drive by and get throw rolls through your window? This one's really
I was going to say,
really good.
Little glove, little catcher's glove. Got it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Dr. Art was revving them up in there in Lambert's, I heard, because I had to stay behind and fill the water barriers. Dr. Art says, Lambert's roll, toss, catch with your face challenge.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds like me after like a few beers. I could do that right there.
Ron's asking me how many cars showed up at Lambert's, and I'm way behind. I'm trying to catch up, guys. You've been pounding me here real fast with all these messages, and Shane and I have been dragging our feet on them, but or me.
You, because I'll say I have no control over it. I just see it on the screen.
Pulido. let's skip some of these. All right. So how many cars showed up at Lambert, 75 or 80? I was not there. John Wilbur he's probably chimed in here somewhere
50.
further down.
I'm going to say 50. Many. I saw the videos. I'm going to say 50. That's my guess.
And 50 is probably a good number, right?
Yeah. That's a lot of cars, man. That's a shit ton, man.
For a first year event, like
yeah,
we were surprised at how many showed up just the first night, and we're like, dude, today's like setup day, you know? Oh yeah, we're gonna camp out here. We're gonna have a good time. I mean, even Mopar Out came out. I want to say Wednesday night. John and I have worked like I don't know how many hours, 16 hours that day maybe, and then. Mopar Al showed up, and the guys from the track were there, a couple of them, and they're like, "Hey, how big is this thing going to be?" And we're like, "We have no idea." It was kind of just a gamble, and I said, it's the first year event, so it's kind of a question mark.
Yeah.
And then Mopar Al pulls in the gate on Wednesday night, and they're like, "Dude, when do you guys start?" And I said, "Friday." He's like, "Oh, it's going to be big, right?" Oh, okay. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Let's see. And Danny Boyd said he loves Craigers. Me too. I like the early stuff. They look good on early cars. You get them on the wrong car though, and they look horrid. Yeah, like 5-liter Mustang with Craigers on it. You couldn't get any worse. What I have found is weld wheels work good on anything like in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Just about anything from the 80s. And here's what's neat is you could take like a Dodge Magnum and put welds on it, but it'd be just as at home with like some Cragar Super Tricks. They don't look good with Super Stocks. They got to have that chrome. They got to have the rounded bumpers, the voluptuous bumpers and hood and fenders, and the more bulbous and finny they are, the better they look with Cragars.
I'm telling you right now, my wife is laughing because that's one of her famous words is bulbous. She loves
bulbous. Well, bulbous. You don't want to know where I got it from. I was at the doctor yesterday. No, I'm kidding. Got a shot for my bulbousness. Let's see. Mostly Old Parts is asking Shane, have you ever met Wes Allenbaugh?
Look, my wife knows names I don't. Look, I know your face. I know what kind of car you drive. So if it's a name, I'm sorry. I'm not very that good with it at all. I'll be honest with you. I'm sorry. Maybe I have. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Look at this comment from our peanut gallery. Dad's throwing you under the bus. Professor P is 2 White Claws away from a throw roll challenge.
I like that Negro Pinoche, man. I got to tell you, I got to love that stuff, man.
Well, Dr. Art had a few guys at No Name Nationals after they'd already had like a few barley pops out in the parking lot or something. They were doing some throw roll challenges, catching them with their face. And that was the Lambert's Challenge, I think is what John was calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, man, those people at Bob Evans, man, they loved us. They just had a great time with us.
Well, up until the point where you said, "Hey, where's the old lady? I'm going to give her a tip," and it's like, wah wah.
But here's the thing, though, is that they all laughed. But how do you classify the one from the next? It was like she was an older lady. I said, "Where's the older lady at?" Whatever. I'm the asshole. I don't care.
Just said, "Hey, where's the hunchback lady at?" Or, "Hey, where's the lady with the crook?"
I think that's more. I think that would be more. I don't know. I was going to say that, but I was just like,
Yeah,
100%. You can't make anyone happy, it seems like nowadays.
Let's see. Andy Boyd said 3rd gen F bodies look not good with Cragar SSs too. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the minus the bumpers and minus the chrome, and everything is angular. If you look at the 80s cars, a lot of them are very angular, right? I think it has a lot to do with that. I'm not sure. Like I said, and you're saying the same thing. Super tricks you can kind of pull off. You can kind of pull off with them, and that's the thing is like those are that'd be, I guess, your go-to wheel generation would be like start off with super stocks, and then if you had anything made after like 1973 and up, super tricks, and then from like 73 to 79 or 80, weld wheels, and then welds branched off in the 90s and went to like the centerline Combo Pro, right? The Combo Pro. And you know, if you can find some of those, snatch them up quick, because that's the next wheel that's going to be coming back.
Really,
right?
Combo Pros, man. I gotta tell you, man, they used to crack all over the place on those little humps. Yeah, oh man, it's terrible. Because you know how they did it is they would those are regular center lines that they would press, and then so the little ribbed, you know, for the her pleasure
the combos,
yeah, they would crack right there, and that's what happened to every single one of mine. Is they cracked right there where they pressed them.
Oh well, I just say snatch them up because that's the next wheel that's going to go through the roof price wise. Probably. But what Ron Moore told me is that company is sold out to the Chinesian way.
No way, really?
Yeah, which I could not even believe.
I wouldn't believe that. Yeah, I didn't know.
So Kevin's saying, tech question, Shane, can I send my new comp roller cam for small block Chevy back to them and have it machined for a press on cast iron distributor gear?
Yes, you can. Here's the thing: is that to put that press on gear on, they have to grind off the rear bearing, machine it off. They have to machine the gear off that's already on there, press the new one on, pin it, and then press on a new bearing, then cut it back down. The problem is that that's going to cost a lot more than a brand new camshaft, and you could buy that camshaft probably cheaper than it would be to have that done. So, I'm not in sales or anything like that. You can call like Robert Freund, or that we have a few guys that can help you out with that. But from my opinion, it would probably be cheaper just to have a new camshaft made. But you can check it out. But yes, we can do that. It'd probably be cheaper just to start over again or sell that one. That's just my opinion. I don't know. But yes, we can.
Well, Michael Schmidt raises a good question. Kragers versus radiators. Seems radiator are less popular. I don't get it because those radiators are badass. I don't think they were around in the vintage era, right? Isn't that something like a repop of it's like a remake of a vintage wheel that could have came out in like in the 60s?
Yeah, it's a repop, yeah.
And so I think what they're fighting is, and I know a lot of guys when they were doing street rod stuff, it got to be big again in retro drag racing. The radiators were the wheel that everybody was jumping on. But have you noticed the price on them? The price on them is like really high. And a lot of the Kragers running around, people aren't buying the new flat face one. They stay away from the flat face Krager. Yeah. They buy the old stuff and then either have it rechromed or repurposed, and then it's a lot cheaper to buy used. And I think that's where people are going. I'm not sure. Keystone Raiders. I'm not familiar with them. I know, like, if you really want to throw like the lineage of wheels in there, you got the Anson Sprint in there somewhere. And then the Keystone Classic would be in there probably like 1972, right? So like 66 through 69 maybe, or maybe a little bit later, would be your Krager SS era. And that's because it literally was the first aftermarket wheel out there that was made for racing purposes.
Yeah.
And they got lighter and lighter. And I didn't realize how heavy those Krager SSs were. Until I got set and I put them on the car, and I'm like, man, I just cut all this weight off of rotating mass, unsprung weight, and I'm adding a 25-pound wheel back on.
I just looked up the Keystone Raider wheels, and they look like Kragers. Little different, but they look like Kragers. I've never heard of that before. So,
you want to know the one that's like not a lot of people know about, the Hurst wheel. You ever heard of the Hurst wheel?
I've heard of it, never seen it.
Dude, it used to come in a can that you would open with like a tuna key. Like a tuna can key. Yeah. They're bitching. They were 100% the 60s.
Dude, you know what that looks like? The old Volkswagens, the old 5-lug.
The MP wheels?
Yeah, that's right. MP wheels. Exactly. Yeah, I'm looking at them right now. That looks awesome.
Yeah. So Bear Rose is saying there was a lot of cars in Lambert's parking lot and 5 times the YouTubers inside. The cool thing about the No Name Nationals was the cars and racing was second. That restaurant is huge, and you had to share tables. That's how you know we had it packed up. Yeah. So John Wilburn saying that old lady got like an $80 tip. It's all good. I'm sure she wasn't. You can call me whatever you want to call me. You know,
for that. But you got just a tip from all of us.
Yeah. So Danny Boyd saying torque thrust wheels are all too common. I tell you what, the ones I was looking at was the They made one a few years ago called the Fuel. I don't know if it's even available anymore. I don't know who makes it. It's the Fuel wheel. I know they got them at Speedway Motors. It's probably Chinese, and that's why I don't buy. I try not to buy anything like that. I try to avoid that.
I'm looking up. See what we got.
Let's see. Dakota's saying, I like Convo Pros. I kept an eye for a set of either those or Welds or Pro Stars, but I ended up with Pontiac rally wheels on my Trans Am. There's nothing wrong with rally wheels, man.
Yeah.
You can make a rally wheel looks timeless.
Mm-hmm. I'm a Weld guy. I like the Weld bullets. They just work. They just look great. That's what's on my Dart. They're light. They're inexpensive, and they just kick ass. They've always been there.
I did them because I got an 80s era car, and I'm like, dude, I'd be a fool to put anything but 80s era wheels on there. And they're light, and they were cost effective. They were only like $140 a wheel or something.
Exactly. And it's like you look at it, you weigh them, and you're like, even the steel wheels are more expensive and they're heavier. It's like,
right, yeah, this is a no-brainer. And by the way, if I really want to, I can go buy a used set for half the price.
Right?
Yeah. Fabra Mod Race Repeat says, Shane, I ordered that cam we discussed 2 days ago.
Awesome. Bitchin'. Good. Yeah, we were emailing each other back and forth about the camshaft, so I'm glad. Awesome. Sounds good.
Jody Calhoun says, Kragers look good on vans. Kragers look good on 70s vans. You can't put them on something from the 90s, I don't think.
I say anything from 65 until 77.
Kragers I have seen them on, the OBS Chevy trucks. I guess it'd be like the 89 to 98 body style.
We'll see. That's 89. It's past the 77 mark. But yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit. That's just my opinion. So
let's see here. Danny Boyd saying the hoop or rim on is chrome on a Krager SS, but I believe the spokes are polished aluminum. I think that's correct. I don't think they're polished. I think they're actually chrome plated aluminum, because mine are all kinds of pitted up. But I don't really care because you're going to have to look at it really close as I'm dumping the clutch at 6,700. So let's see. Motor wheel spiders and flies. That's a good looking wheel too. That's actually what's in your picture, Mr. Drag Pack Merc. That's correct. They're a good looking wheel as well. That had the about 70 to 72 flare. It was about the same time as the Keystone Classics.
Check them out.
Let's see. Mopar Man 1978 says polished slot mags. Wheels are great. Got them on my 82 D150, and I have them on my 65 Dart. They're easy go-to lightweight wheel. It's aluminum, right? It's going to weigh less than the steel wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But there used to be like 47 companies making the slot wheel. There literally was like a bunch, right? I mean, you had Anson Sprints was the first one that I think was introduced, and then everybody made one. It's like, I was walking down the street one day, and a guy came out of a Johnny on the Spot at a construction area, and he had just fabricated a slot wheel in the Johnny on the Spot. Like literally everybody was making one.
Yeah.
Stagger proof. What do you mean no love for Magnum 500s? We're just talking about aftermarket drag race wheels here. Magnum 500s were not aftermarket drag race wheel. They were OEM Chrysler wheel that look took off with Buick and Oldsmobile and Mopar, and Ford even had a set like it. It was virtually everybody. Everybody had some, and Chevrolet even had some painted steel. Because I don't think the Chevrolets ever got any chrome ones. Oh no, they did on the Chevelle. The Chevelle got them. See, Colleen, Tebow, and I are on the same wavelength here. Most Leo parts, black steelies, and poverty caps. I like poverty cap cars.
Beautiful.
My 70 stage one that I'm going to break out is going to be 15x8s with wide ovals on it and poverty caps. It's going to look bitchy.
That's what I love on my car. I love those things with the dog dish hubcaps that just cover those. I love that. I just love that look.
About painting the wheels the same color as the car, and then dog dish.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Even on my Bug, I used to have my Volkswagen Bug. I used to drag race. It had two pieces. It had was steel, rim. It was black, and then it was like almond on the actual rim part. So it was bitching because the Bug was black where the chrome was at, and below that it was almond. So it just looked bitching. So I think it looks good. I like that stuff.
I'm actually sold at like wheels and tires can make the car. And matter of fact, not even the factory wheels and tires. I mean, what I mean by that is like when I first started street racing my T-Bird, there was all kinds of wheels I could have bought, but I went and got the factory Turbo Coupe Snowflake wheels. Yeah. Okay, it looked good. They were 16-inch tire. It handled well. It rode nice. You could put a 16-inch drag radial on there, and no one would ever notice. And that thing, it would run with the Snowflake wheels on it. And then I'd be like, "Hey, you just got beat by a 4-cylinder." But that wasn't the case.
To shift gears here, we've been on wheels for 36 minutes. Let's talk about PRI.
Well, we can't talk about PRI. We can get off of the wheel thing here.
Yeah, let's talk about PRI. Would you find a PRI that you enjoyed? Let's talk about PRI. Let's go for it.
Well, I tell you what. Okay, so this was the first year that I've been back to PRI since 2019, maybe.
Yeah.
Because 2020 it was shut down. Then 21, I didn't go because it was still kind of iffy. Yep. And then this was the first year back, right? So the numbers were down, which I noticed. It was like the number of exhibitors was down, the number of participants was down. I guess just the viewers or buyers or whatever you want to call it was down, and it actually made for a better event, I believe, because the people in the booth were much more open to talk with you, and it wasn't so much like it was still busy. Don't get me wrong; it was like you could get lost in there for at least 3 days, and I'm sure that there's some like grown adults that are just sobering up at the beer tent right now, like, oh, PRI is over.
Right. Wait, I didn't go home. I'm still here.
I'll tell you, there's videos running around on Facebook where like farm truck was pulling the farm truck out, and we walked around for 2 days straight, and I didn't even see the farm truck.
Never did. Nope. I saw the pontoon boat, farm truck, but I never saw the actual farm truck.
I didn't see it either. It was there. Here's something interesting. Let me grab something real quick that John and I found on the last day, because I said, they used to stick like these exhibitors, like AHRA would be over there. Okay, that's how I knew about it. But they would stick these exhibitors that were like, second hat over on the side, along the sides of the event, right?
In the hallways,
right. And I said, hey man, let's go over this way. There might be some stuff over here, because they used to put these things out here. And we went over there and we saw the coolest thing. Hold on, give me a second. I'll get it for you. I'll get the guy's business card, and I'll show you the business card. The business card is cool as hell.
That's good. So what he's talking about is that they had these aisleways that went between, so you could walk around the whole show. And in the aisleways, they had all these cars and, like little side exhibitors. So, all right, go for it. All
right. So here is this guy's business card. Okay.
That is awesome.
This is literally, it looks like a hockey puck. It's just foam. It probably didn't cost a lot to make, but it's different and eccentric, right? Now, what this guy does is called, Goonie wheel. I think he's from like Australia, maybe. I'm not sure. But it's a wheel that he's made, and you know how like you got the micro spares in the trunk of your car? This is a plastic wheel with a hub that literally has every bolt pattern on the planet on it.
I saw that.
And you can put it on. It's mock-up wheels is really what it is. You can roll it around a shop, but it's got little indentions in it. I even asked him about like the indentions. Is it hard to push? He said no. But it keeps the car from rolling away with those little indentions, but it makes it like super easy to, you just buy a set of these things, you roll around your shop on these wheels, and then when you buy your wheels and tires that you're going to use, you take the Goonie wheels off.
I saw that.
I think they're like $65 a wheel or something. He said, which
nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if let's say you don't have the time, because this is where time equals money kind of thing, right? Because if you have the time, you generally don't have the money. If you have the money, you don't have the time, right? So if, let's say you're working a lot of hours and you got the money, but you don't have the time, instead of going to the junkyard and finding 4 spares off of something, right? And you know, now the junkyard, they won't even let you pull the spares out without slashing the tire on it. And it's like, dude, I'm not going to run this down the road. I'm trying to mock up a dang race car. But you get a couple of these suckers and you'll never have to do it again. And what was neat was the guy actually had a bearing that you could bolt to the hub of any wheel. And then you could bolt the Goonie wheel on this bearing. It literally like, so I started thinking about it. I said, John, you know what? If you had like a locked up bearing on your trailer, you could throw that sucker on there and then throw your wheel on and haul it down to the next exit, right? Or just a spare tire, because that thing has a bolt pattern on it, right? So if you can find the spare, just haul it down to the next. Or like if you got booted, let's say you got a boot on the car, right?
Clamp it on there, boom, done.
Yeah, put it on and like take the boot and everything with you. I just thought it'd be kind of cool. So,
all right. So move down to 736. Michael Schmidt asked a question there.
36, okay.
736. Michael Schmidt. It says Shane.
Okay. Yep. He says, Shane,
with your Slant at the drag strip, what RPM do you run? What rear end ratio and what ET do you have? I'm curious if you have run a low or high rear gear ratio. What RPM take to do well? Okay, so here's what my car is a daily driver. So I have a 276 gear in it, designed for driving down the road and you know, doing 80 miles an hour. So it is not a drag racing car, but I did take it to drag week. So with my Slant, I shift it right at about 5,000 RPM. It doesn't have a big camshaft, so I start the shift at 4,500. It shifts it at 5. It's really fallen off by 5,500. It's all over with. And the ET I ran was, I think the best was a 16.8. I think is what I did. You can go to Slant Daily Garage. I have a whole thing like 1 through 5 on drag week there. Now my goal is, if you see right here, I actually pulled this up for you. You see that? That is my A500 transmission that I'm designing a bolt-on for. So that way I'll have a low ratio first, second, and third, and then an overdrive. And so I'm going to go to a 355 gear, and then I'm going to try it again. My goal is to get at least into 15s or 14s, and then I'm going to put a turbo on the thing. And then my goal is 13 seconds, 30 miles to the gallon, drag week there and back. That is my goal. If I can do that, I'll be happy. So that's what it is. So it did well.
Here's your Bear Rose cheap tech tip of the week. Okay, so he says, I look for good used raised white letter tires because I can grind them down to 3-inch wide whites. But I smell like burnt rubber for 3 days after doing it. DIY Po' Boy tires. And that, folks, is you can take it to the bank. That's something that you could easily do and have yourself some wide whites, right? Because there is all that white material underneath the black. But me personally, I've never done it. I don't.
I'm not following that. So he takes the tire, he just grinds it down on the side like the white wall, and it becomes a white wall.
Right. You just used a grinder like a death wheel with a grinding bit on it.
Yeah.
Not a cutter, but like a grinder. And you grind the first 1/8 of an inch of black rubber off.
And it becomes white?
It's like a couple hundred thousands, huh?
And it becomes white? Like
white because that's how they make the white letter.
Oh, I just thought they painted the white letter. I had no idea. I just thought that maybe it was all black and then the white letter was painted.
I've scrubbed them white letters with the brush and it doesn't come off. I mean, I don't know what you guys use. I use the Wesley bleach white on white letter tires.
That sounds amazing. So that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of hacks that you can do that actually save you a big pile of cash if you know what you're looking for, right? Yeah. Like Dalton from Pole Barn Garage made his own white lettered tires, but I think he used spray paint or something. Let's see. Olive's in here. Good to see you, Olive. Let's see. Mostly old parts. So at PRI, was anyone offering a complete kit to convert LS engines to use a carb and conventional distributor? Circle Track guys are running out of small block Chevys, and this would be a great option for them. There's companies that offer that all day long, like Pace Performance, or is it Pace Motorsports? They used to have a whole turnkey carbureted LS setup that you could buy. Matter of fact, they even made a timing cover that had a distributor on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't. There's so many companies. I don't even know where to begin without questioning. So yeah, there's a lot. Just Google it; it'll come up. It'll be honored to come up.
Yeah. Mopar's Mustangs and Minivans likes the thumbnail.
Right. I like the emoji. I'm a poo guy. I enjoy that.
Wait, did you see? I'm Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo.
Well, originally, that started off where I was trying to get Rudolph to take a dump with the Christmas poo, right? But it didn't work out, and it didn't look good, and I just ended up throwing it all on there like that. I'm like, man, I gotta get this thing done.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't mind being the poo. You know, my daughter, my oldest, she's always been into like the poo emoji when it first came out. She had like a unipoon or something, a unicorn poon or something like that. Oh, it's fucking crazy. A poonicorn. That's what it was called. Poonicorn. Yeah.
Well, Ron Ward says that using an 80 grit sanding disc on a 4.5-inch angle grinder works like a champ. So that's to knock your black walls off and get your white walls down there, huh?
Yep.
So Clint's in here. I didn't see him jump in. I must have scrolled right past it. There's white rubber under the black rubber on those. Yep.
Didn't know that, Clint. For real, I had no idea. Never went that far.
Let's see. Mopar Mustangs and minivans. So we finally have found some purchase for an A body 8.25. So that's what he's putting in his car now.
Yeah, it's about time. He posted a little short a little while back where he had the 7.25, another 8.25, another 8.25, and then his car on jack stands with no rear end in it. So he was waiting on a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, it was actually kind of funny. Yeah,
the whole LS thing at PRI is kind of funny, and John's alluding to it here. He said there are way too many LSs at PRI, and I went into like the last day, and I looked at John. I said, I'm disappointed, John. He's like, really? I said, man, PRI has let me down. Can you tell me if you've seen an LS intake manifold somewhere? Right? And he was like, yeah, because there must be like 4 billion of them at PRI.
Walk in any direction, you step over one, you know?
Right. I mean, I had to wait in line behind one at the water fountain, right? Yep. That's how many there was. They're literally, they were everywhere. Somebody John, up the men's room with one.
Hey, John, you still owe me a phone number. I got to send someone my information so I can send him some credentials. You know what I'm talking about.
Danny Boyd said, running out of small block Chevys, God, the 21st century is an awful place at time. Right. I'm going to go ahead and blame that on everything else that's going wrong.
Yeah. Due to COVID, because of COVID. Insert problem here.
Yeah. Don't, it's like, don't let any good crisis go to waste, right?
Mm-hmm.
Small block Chevys are gone because of COVID-19. Let's see. I think the LSs will dry up here soon too, just because every single one of them that falls out of a van or a truck gets turboed or nitrous to death. So, I mean, they're a good motor, but man, do they are there a lot of sacrifice to the god of speed.
Well, they're going to be $500. Is going to be $5,000 pretty soon because they're going to be hard to find. So yeah.
Bear Rose Garage is saying it's just an ultra thin layer of black. Under that, it's all white because the rubber is actually white. It's dyed black. I used a 6-inch sander with 80 grit and cut slots in the paper so it's see-through.
Didn't know that. Honestly, I had no. That is absolute news to me. That is absolutely kind of forward.
And Wanna Be here says the same thing. The rubber used for tires starts out as white, and the black is added. I did not know that.
No, not at all. First time.
Maybe that's how you can make blue smoking tires and pink smoking tires. I don't know.
Right.
Let's see. Well, Jason from Jason's Garage says it used to be a guy that would come to our shop and cut white walls and tires for us. And I, I wonder if every tire is like that, or is it just the white letters?
I don't know, because I got to tell you right now, I got on my truck and my wife's car, you hit a curb, it still stays black,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, John's saying you could traverse the entire floor at PRI walking LS intake to LS intake.
Yes, the floor is lava. The floor is lava. You got to step on the LS
doubt
intakes.
I'm telling you, there was probably 4 LS intakes to every one spectator at that place. There was just that many LS manifolds there, and all of them were being manufactured by somebody, Did you see the funniest thing that? Well, maybe I should have put that picture up here today. You know what? I'll see if I can find it. No, I don't have time for that now. It's too late. What was funny is, like, you remember that old meme that used to have Mr. Bean? It showed Mr. Bean copying somebody else's paper.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it showed a guy like over here, and he's doing his test, and Mr. Bean is over here on the left, and he's copying. He's looking over at this guy with his Mr. Bean look, right?
Yeah,
and he's copying the answers down. Well, it said everyone. This guy over here that's legitimately taking the test, it said every manufacturer at PRI, and it had Mr. Bean over there. It said Speedmaster. Mm-hmm. Just copying off of everything that they have, right? Let's see.
Competition products, you right?
Yeah. Let's see here. Michael Schmidt at PRI, did you see any new support for vintage engines and vintage speed? Just wondering if you saw anything interesting. I wouldn't expect that you saw anything but LS support. Well, okay, no. LS stuff was there. I mean,
I saw Buick, the nailhead stuff. I did see
some I was just going to bring that up. There's a guy that had vintage reproduction nailhead valve covers.
Yep, right? I saw that. And intakes. He had intakes, or not him. Maybe it was him. I don't know.
There was another guy that had intakes, but the nailhead is kind of coming into its own now, because that's the cheap engine to grab. Now, don't be surprised when this thing doesn't make over 300 horsepower, but it'll make gobs of torque. It does. That's the whole purpose of it. But they are not. But here's the thing: you trade off all that horsepower for just one of the sexiest looking engines ever put in a car, right? Straight up valve covers. Who would have known?
I got to say, I think the next engine in line for being the new LS is there's the Gen 3 Hemi and the Godzilla. Man,
we saw 3 or 4 Godzillas at the place. So
yeah,
Godzilla's kind of coming into its own too now.
They kick ass, and people are really starting to see like the guy at Frankenstein. The guy the owner of Frankenstein. He was telling me about how that's the reason why I haven't built the head, is because they can just port a Gen 3 Hemi head and it blows just like a ported out awesome LS head. So people are starting to realize that, and there's a lot of people out there that are making parts for that stuff. So it's amazing. So oh, John Wilburn, you got to go down to the bottom here.
Or is it here? This one?
No. You got to go all the way to the bottom. Keep on going down on the comments.
Okay.
753. There you go. Perfect.
Your question. Can I use a short hose to connect the ported vacuum port on the manifold vacuum port on my Edelbrock AVS and close the circuit? Actually seen on YouTube this week.
Can I use the short hose to connect the ported vacuum port on the manifold to my Edelbrock AVS? What side of the AVS? Because you have the Ford side and you have the Chrysler side and GM side. So what side are you talking about?
Aren't those two right up front next to each other?
Yeah.
So he's just running the ported over to the straight vacuum, and then close the circuit. What would that do, though?
It wouldn't do anything.
I don't see any gain, because one is above the butterfly and the other one is below the butterfly.
It would actually create a vacuum leak, is what it would do, because if it's above the vacuum, above the blade, which is on the ported side, and then you connect it to the vacuum side.
Yeah, you're right. It would just be like a regulated vacuum leak with whatever big hole.
It would just be a vacuum leak, 100%. So it would be high idle at that point. That's amazing. You know what? It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because I think I know who he's talking about because there's a guy who does that and he puts the little fish tube things on it. Have you seen that?
Yeah, well, and that's what's funny is Jason's garage kind of beat you to it. He says, "No fish tank regulator."
Right. Right. From Amazon for $1.49.
Yeah, I don't know. I just run my vacuum to the accessories it's meant to run.
Yeah, yeah.
Why not?
Wow.
Yeah, and everybody jumping on it now. Danny Boyd said a vacuum leak above the blades. Yes, that's exactly what it would be, right? So, man, yeah. See, he's saying it right now. This was on the front of the car. A guy did it on a video this week. Claimed it closed the circuit. I owe Professor P a sorcery question, and that one was perfect.
Right? Because he told me he was going to do it, and I was like, "Dude, bring it on." I figured it out. But yeah. Once he did it, yeah, that's. That's funny.
Look at this question here. Bear Rose Garage says, never cross the streams and don't trust everything you see on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. That says it all right there. But and then not to dog on you. That's like there is a lot of guys that really go out of their way to like make up some total BS.
Right? Or they just don't know. And that's the thing is am I when I watch these videos, I'm like, are they just out there? Is this for real? Or are they just really like, is this like a joke? Like, it's like, it's too far on right or left to be like, what's going on here? Yes. No, I get it. Yes.
Well, John and I were actually brainstorming about something last night that I think we got to do next year. And Professor P, you got to get on this, man. This is going to be big. We're going to make a freaking YouTube video. It's going to break YouTube in the automotive community. We came up with one that is freaking amazing. It is, I think, justifiable, and we can prove it at home, and it's going to be something neat. Really,
I'm down. I'm down for that. That sounds great.
And right before we step into the hardcore tech question at the top of the hour, I have been working on something that's neat as well. I can't let you know really what it is, but here's kind of the ballpark. I'm going to try to put together a race for the AHRA in the off season where you don't have a race car and you don't even have to leave your house. And so this is going to be
entry. You just got to enter. You got to enter.
You just got to be a member. You're already entered if you're a member. So, but I got to make it work. I've been screwing with this stupid thing for a couple of days, and you'll see what I mean when I finally say, all right, it's time to enter for the off-season showdown or whatever we call it. I have no idea yet, but it is going to be very, very different, something that you've never done before ever. I guarantee it.
Is this the same thing we talked about on the phone? I won't say nothing. Is this what we talked about on the phone when I was driving up? Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
So I got to try to do this thing because I think it's worth a try just to see how it goes.
Don't try, just do it. I'm telling you, people are going to love that shit, man. For real, they're going to love it.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Jason's garage practice tree. No, matter of fact, there's no reaction times involved. So I'm looking at this. Doug Narden says, yes, there are YouTube experts, i.e. David Vizard, Professor P. Then there are YouTube experts. And, that's John calls that the wizardry. That's the wizardry from YouTube.
Sorcery.
The sorcery. That's what it is. The sorcery.
That's right. YouTube. And we have a Merlin in the sorcery. And like I said, there's a Merlin.
That's something that if I make enough money at the AHRA this year to buy a booth, I'm going to get 2 at PRI next year. I'm going to get 2. And we're going to do a freaking sorcery booth. That's something that we got to do. Like, hey, it has to happen. I can't let the cat out of the bag because it is John's idea. So I'm not going to tell anybody. But it would be amazing. And you would probably have people standing around the block to see the shows because it'd just be like, they're going to boo, hiss, throw all kinds of stuff at you, and then still learn something. So, Irish Outlaw Garage says, I'm a watch at your own risk expert. So, I'm kind of the same way because I'm like, Hey, don't forget to put your safety glasses on and then don't put any on. I do a lot of those. Let's see. No gloves when it comes to cleaning stuff with caustic chemicals. That's me. I just let the skin fall off. That's how you get new skin.
That's right.
That's how your hands
It takes
look
the calluses off, you know?
Oh, so Colleen saying I missed one. Please go back up to Clayton's toolbox question, please. All righty. I will do. I did not see a. Oh, okay. Here we go. Clayton's toolbox says, could you recommend an economical wideband fuel ratio meter? Any tips?
The economical, I'm going to say that he means like inexpensive. I'm running the fast one currently. It runs off of my phone, and it's really bitching. And I'm not sure about how economical it is, but it works. I have a little app on my phone right up there, and when I hit it, it comes out like this, and it stays on my car, and you can read it as you drive down the road. So, and it works. It works awesome, and it's always charged up. Now I had another fast one where they just stayed screwed in, but they never got hot, so they would go bad. But this one, whenever you start the car up, they get hot, they get excited, and so even though you're not reading it, it's still reading itself. So it works good. I'll get you guys, if you email me slantdailygarage@yahoo.com, I'll get you the part number for it, and I'll see what I can do for cost, because right now I think we're running all kinds of specials. But yeah, it works. It works amazing. That's actually how I've been tuning my Slant 6 right now. It's just awesome.
Well, we're at the top of the hour. I'm gonna have to take a break from reading questions off, but you got the hardcore tech question and like, man, I need to have an intro for that. It's just like hardcore tech. Like hardcore.
It's all death metal. It's all okay. Walking around. Before we started, let's set the stage here. We're going to set the stage. So I walked around PRI for 2 days, and I saw pretty much everything. We walked up and down every single aisle there. And Dallas, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Did you see anything besides what we were going to talk about that really was groundbreaking for our audience? Did you see anything that would really change their lives?
There was this mega expensive set of pedals.
Oh yeah, we're not going to go there. So, but for our guys, I did see something that really is going to be changing stuff. Now, we kind of touched on it a few weeks back, and I had no comment because I couldn't really comment on it. But it's going to be the DLC-coded lifters. Now, out of all of PRI, I believe that, and that's not just because I work for them. It's just because I'm a car guy, and I build stuff in my garage, and just like you guys. So here it is. The DLC-coded lifters are an absolute game changer, for real. Because it's not the fact that, and I've never been able to allude to this, but I'll say it for real and what it is. Camshafts are not the problem. They're the best they've ever been. We have at Comp, we have 2 Landis machines that can cut these camshafts within 0.0001. That's a tenth of a thousandth of tolerance. 11 minutes, and they come out perfect every single time. They go through an ATCO. They're double, triple, quadruple checked. There's no problem with the camshafts, and they're harder than they've ever been. We have all kinds of parkerization. We have nitriding. The problem's always been in the lifters. Okay, it's just the manufacturing of the lifters has always been, recently has been the issues. So we solved that. We started DLC coding the actual the lifters, the face of them, and so it's a diamond like carbide. Okay, so what it is, it's super hard and super slick. And so how we tested this is that we took we did the best of the best, which was actually parkerization, nitriding, and coating these lifters. We did best of the worst, which means parkerization, nitriding with a crappy lifter. And then we did the worst of the worst. We took a lifter that was damaged completely in shipping, just had nicks and cracks and just parts missing from it, no nitriding, and no parkerization. Okay. And we ran these at 10 million cycles. Now, do you understand how much 10 million? That's like 2 weeks of running at, from 3,000 to 7,000, back down to 3,000, back up to 8,000, back down to 3,000. It's just doing this for 2 weeks straight. And we had not one failure. So we're talking about a camshaft that had zero parkerization, zero nitriding, with crappy lifters that were DLC coated, and they had nicks and craps. You know, we hit them on the ground. We did everything you could do wrong for this, and we didn't have one failure. So what that means is that now we offer a lifter that literally is indestructible. Now, obviously, there's always going to be someone who's going to find some way to destroy it, but literally, we tried.
Yeah, lash is 60,000, crank it down 60,000 beyond maximum, right?
There's going to be someone who's going to destroy it, but we tried. And so we ran it with like literally no break-in. We put, 200 pounds of seat pressure, 400 pounds over the nose. Regular oil. We did everything that you could do wrong, and we didn't have a failure. We ran it the best of the best. We had no failures. We ran the worst of the worst, no failures. And here's the thing. They're not incredibly expensive. I think they're like $160, $150. Now, don't quote me on that. I'm not a salesman. But when we were on the live on the Thursday, we're at PRI, I texted Mark Campbell. He's a VP of sales. And I think he was saying it was $150, $160. So that's something you can get over the counter. So as far as the hardcore tech, the greatest, most impressive thing that I saw comes from the Edelbrock booth. It has nothing to do with just the fact that I'm that guy. It's just that this is the biggest thing to come out. You're talking about a lifter that just will not fail. That is game changer in my book.
The impact is okay.
Huge.
One, before I go on my tirade here, because there's a couple things that I do want to say about it. Last week we got a question about that, and I'll be honest, there was a guy that asked specifically, can you take the lifter out and put it on another lobe? And look, the jury's still out on that one. There needs to be more testing done because no one set out with the goal of doing that, right? Yeah. They were looking at what you could accomplish with trying to make the lifter work. So no one's done anything with that. The jury's still out. Okay, so don't go around doing that. I mean, if you want to find out you got yourself some cheap stuff, knock it out. I mean, that's what YouTube's all about. That's what we're here for. Now, me personally, if I just dropped $160 on a set of lifters, I probably wouldn't do that, especially if it's something that I wanted to keep around for a little while, because that thing doesn't just trash the lifter and the cam. All that hardened metal goes through the freaking oil system. All the bearings get just gacked, and the crank gets marred, and all kinds of stuff.
But we did that testing for you. That was the whole thing. 10 million. I'm going to say that one more time. 10 million cycles is what we did. It's not revolutions. That's actual valve train movement. 10 million cycles that thing went through. And we did that 4 or 5 different times. The best of the best. Like I said, just different scenarios, different this. Not one failure. That to me was insane. And I was there. I saw it. And I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it, but I saw it, and it went through. And I couldn't comment on it before, but that is the truth. That's an amazing product. And I'll tell you right now, as far as all of PRI, there should have been like this beam from the heavens.
Well, see, and that's one thing I noticed is there at that show is there is no beam from the heavens.
No,
they should have been like, hey, have you seen the newest, latest, and greatest thing? They come over the microphone like, check, PRI audience.
That's right.
I just want to let you know, over at booth number 3121 is the Edelbrock Group. They're displaying the newest, latest, groundbreaking technology in PRI.
That's right.
It is a DLC-coated flat tappet lifter. Lifter failures are now a thing of the past, and voila, we are now living in the future.
Right.
Thank you very much.
And the beam comes down from the skies, from the heavens, and opens up, and the clouds move to the side. I'm telling you. It's an amazing product. That's why the other day when you were talking about camshafts and stuff, and I said no comment, I wasn't trying to be an ass, because this is what I knew. I had to keep my mouth shut. But that thing's amazing. It's an amazing product, for real.
Yeah, that is groundbreaking, and it's something that's worthwhile testing. I wouldn't mind getting the wrong oil, like one has zero zinc, like Castrol 515. Okay, it's meant for your Japanese car.
Yep.
515. Pour it in there. And you put the wrong springs on it with a dual valve spring, and then just let her eat, see what happens.
I'll do it. I'll do it. You know what? Because I trust it. I'll do it on a Slant 6. I have a test startup.
No, it's
I will.
something that nobody cares about, right? Like,
Yeah,
305 Chevy, no one cares.
Yeah, no one cares. But I'll tell you right now, it will run. And here's the thing: is if it survives, put it in your car and start driving to places. And then people are like, these are the same ones that I started up the wrong way. No spring takeoff. Didn't even break it in. Just started up and started driving the damn thing. And here it is. It's 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 miles later, and it's still here. And
you literally start it up, and then just as soon as it's running, throw it and drive and mat it, and just freaking do a burnout all the way around the block. Like that's the first 5 seconds of the lifter's life, right?
I will do that because I trust it. I'm telling you, I've seen it.
I believe it probably works. I mean, they wouldn't put it out there if it didn't, right?
Yeah.
But I just think, because if you look at how many videos there are about camshaft and lifter failures right now, I bet you in the past month there's been 1,000 of those videos made. Right? People are RA testing stuff. People are freaking X-raying them. They're checking the metal, not the hardness. They're checking hardness right on the Rockwell scale. There's all kinds of theories. There's no taper. There's no concave, or not. It's not convex on the bottom, so it doesn't rotate. You use the wrong oil. There's all kinds of crap. But if you do it all in one video, every wrong thing you could possibly do,
cure it all.
If it walks away at the end of the day, that is literally a game changer, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and I'm telling you now, I have no problem doing it because I've seen it survive. And when we tested it, literally, we put it in the Spintron. And a Spintron obviously is it's an electric motor turning technically just a mandrel. And those engines literally are smoking because there's nothing cooling them. And those springs get hot. And it's actually more damaging than actually running an engine because you're cycling it up and down. There's nothing going through the cooling system. And it's only getting oil from the top end, and we limit that, so we make it the worst of the worst situation.
It doesn't even have a cooling system. There's holes in the block, so you can see the mandrel, you can see the oil drain back. That's the same one that I saw when I went over there, right?
Yeah, and well, we have a few of them, but this one we did on Small Block Chevrolet, and we did something else. I can't remember. I don't remember exactly, but we actually have a laser that goes up inside the block, so that way it records the valves. So we can actually, at high RPMs, your camshaft will actually technically get smaller. So if you have, like, say, 240 duration of 50, it becomes like eventually like 235 or 232. So we can actually measure that. What's the valve train doing it at certain RPMs, and we can slow it down and take pictures of it, and it maps it all out for us. But so we did all that stuff, and we wanted to see everything, and it survived. It was an absolutely amazing win.
All right. Well, without going any further down that rabbit hole, so there's a lot of questions that popped up for this thing. So one, Danny Boyd he says that hardcore tech trivia questions is what we should have, right? Okay. John Wilburn says, just say no to sorcery. He sends a super chat. So thanks, John. I'll be super chat live. But yes, so here's the thing that no one probably even knows is that I've never had a super chat button. I was trying to, I've had this channel since essentially 2008 when I think you could set up one. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, I guess super chats came out later, and I had to go in there and not just turn it on, but establish super chats to the channel. So that was why I never got any super chats. I couldn't figure out, I wonder why that didn't happen. But after talking over to John, he's like, I've never even seen that page before. And I think it was because the channel is so old that it never was established with super chats. And it didn't even get monetized until probably September or October. So, and I never even thought about looking at it. So, and that's just because we had enough views.
So I was actually going to bring a lifter so you can kind of see it today, but I had a lot of stuff to do at TCI today, and tomorrow I get to do 100 laps of the drag racing. So yeah, rough life.
So Irish Outlaw Garage says, I need a good recommendation on a camshaft for a mostly stock 304 AMC, Edelbrock Torker, Edelbrock 1406. So,
I don't know our camshaft part numbers for our Edelbrock numbers or comp cams numbers. Irish Outlaw Garage, send me Slant Daily Garage Yahoo, and I will send you the camshaft that you're going to need, because this is going to be an over-the-counter camshaft, and I just don't know the part number off the top of my head. I apologize. I'm still working on it. Send it to me, and I'll send you the exact camshaft you need.
I think he's kind of expecting something like, hey, you want your intake center line this, you want your...
for mostly stock 304, you're going to be in the 212, 214. You don't want to go more than that, because once you get over that number on the intake duration at 50, then you're going to start getting that boogity. And you're mostly stock. I'm assuming that you're looking for a 304 AMC is going to be kind of a torque monster. Those things are kind of good to begin with. So, right in that range, something on maybe a 112 to 114 LSA, so you can widen that thing out, and then go from there. I don't know the name of them. If you just call up and ask them for the DLC coated lifters, I don't know the technical or salesman name for them.
Here's something that's going to save you a bit. So a few down, Clint says you're showing $120 a set on the Comp Cam's website.
There you go. Okay, so I was wrong on the price. So there it is, $120 set on the Comp Cam's website. So thank you, Clint. Like I said, I don't do anything with sales. I just help design them and fail the parts.
So Ron was wanting to know, Shane, does Comp machine the face of their 842 diameter and 904 diameter lifters on the same radius?
Is he talking about the actual curve? Yeah, they're going to be the same curve, but actually the 904 is going to be slightly bigger, but not much, because on the camshaft, the journals, as far as on the cam lobes, are the same essentially width, and you can only turn them so fast. So yeah, they're going to be pretty close, and the camshaft is going to be a thou and a half as far as taper. As far as that's how
this one again is for you, Shane. I'm assuming right now that it's Professor P. Were those hydraulic or solid lifters? And I'm assuming they're both, right?
Both. Absolutely. You can get them for both.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, dude, I got some freaking... I see 2 super chats. Am I that far behind?
Yeah, you're a little far behind.
Fabrics Mod Repeat says for $2.11, I'll go 175 miles an hour.
Right.
All right. Well,
$2.11, yeah.
We do have 2 super chats. Thank you so much, Michael Schmidt. $10. Good times, gents. This one's even better. All for us, no rudder says throw rolls contribution. So now he has to catch him with his face.
How about this? For that $10, next time we do a No Name Nationals, me and the wifey will be there. And for that $10, we're going to make sure everybody gets a throw roll at the exact same time. We'll try that.
All at the same time. 1, 2, 3, cannons away. Right?
Boom.
Exactly. Let's see here. We'll do back up a bit because I saw those things come in.
Clayton's Toolbox. Go to Clayton's Toolbox. Is
Clint's saying only small and big block Chevys are listed for those lifters.
Right now. Just know that for right now. And that the 904 is not far. John Wilburn says right below that 904 is not far behind. I promise you, it's not far behind. It's the only one listed right now. Yes.
Max Wedge Dick Dastardly says my lifters have been on 3 different cams or more and no problems.
Yes, and
look, that's it. Mr. Dick Dastardly, we would like to hire you for our sorcery booth next year. But that's it's not that is not common practice. No. That's not common practice. That in today's world, that's a surefire way how to flatten a cam. And if you want to gamble, if you have good stuff, I would have to say good stuff is anything made before like 2003. You might be able to get away with that a lot easier. And there has been rumors that you can reface the lifter with 2,000 grit sandpaper.
I don't. Okay, I'm going to say no on that one because it doesn't work. I've seen people try it, but you can resurface them, and there's a couple companies that do that, but I don't know them on the top of my head. But yeah, don't do that because you got to get the right crown. It's got to be correct because if the crown's wrong, it'll eat it up.
I'll tell you the gooned up thing that I've seen, that I've heard. Okay, and I have never tried it. I actually got a set. I was going to try it, and then I chickened out because I didn't want to wipe a cam. But you take 2,000 grit sandpaper and a small, thin piece of glass, and on top of the glass, you get a small, thin piece of foam, right?
Okay. Following you so far. Yeah.
You go circle 8 or figure 8s on the 2,000 grit sandpaper, and what happens is that foam rides. It only puts the pressure on the spots that are high. Okay. And then after a while, it'll start knocking the edges down, and you'll end up with a convex or a concave surface. Yeah, and that's what you want. But now there's no real art to that whatsoever.
I say no. It might work for a little while, and it might work, but will it survive? No, it's not going to survive very long.
I don't know. I definitely wouldn't go out there and tell everybody that, you know, that's what I'm running. But and if it's worked for Mr. Dastardly, hey, great. And I do. That guy has the coolest screen name, just to let you know that. You know, Max Wedge Dick Dastardly. Yeah, I thought it used to say Rusnick or something, but
go one more down from John Wilburn.
Kevin. I like John Wilburn's idea here where we're going to have the EV motors using them as a spintron for the home guy.
One below that one. There we go. Yeah.
Now they should fix lifter collapse too.
So lifter collapse is not technically lifter collapse. What's happening is that you're spinning it faster than it can actually fill with oil. And that's usually come from most hydraulic lifters have 150 thousandths of actual preload that you can move it up and down. Most people have always been told put 20 thousandths preload. So that means you still have 130 thousandths of actual lifter in there. And so why you get lifter collapse is because at higher RPM, say anything over 6,000 RPM, there's not enough time for that oil to fill in there and get it. So it just collapses. So you're absolutely correct. What we've done, we've talked about a few times, is I just put it 20 thousandths from the bottom or 40 thousandths from the bottom, and you won't have that problem, because when it collapses, basically it becomes a solid lifter at that point. And then you're using the camshaft correctly. So I would just try to run it closer to the bottom, because, you know, I've worked with lifters my whole career as far as being an engineer, and that's always been an issue. There's only so much you can do, because I did the math for you guys. It's 375 thousandths, and then you do the math as far as pounds per square inch, and you got X amount of oil pressure, and then you do the spring pressure back, the mechanical advantage to the rocker arm. It's going to overpower the thing by light years. And the whole point of it is just to take up slack, and as it goes over the nose, you're going to compress that lifter. And then when it's on the base circle, it's supposed to refill with oil, so that way when it goes over the nose, it's going to slowly compress again. And once you get to a certain RPM, it just can't fill again. So run it from the bottom, set it up like a camshaft. If you're going to RPM over, say, 6,500, and you shouldn't have a problem. Now there's going to be people say, well, I go to 7,000, I never had a problem. You're right. Sometimes you won't. It really comes down to spring rate, the derivatives of say the actual camshaft and the profile. Once you get down to essentially jerk, as far as that's the third derivative down, and that really tells you what's happening with the camshaft, your springs, and the frequency of the spring. It goes really deep, but what it comes down to is just set it off the bottom, and you shouldn't have a problem with it as far as the collapse. Now there's people who make short travel lifters who fix that right off the bat, but just shove it up, put it down to the bottom, and you won't have a problem with it.
I've never had one really collapse. Out of all the engines I built 16 since 2 years ago, right? 3 years ago. So the only thing I've ever had is something, it got like a piece of trash in the lifter, and it was impacting the oil going into the orifice, right?
Yeah,
it could
right on the ball. Yeah,
yeah. But that's the only problem I've actually had with that, just getting trash in it. And I would bet, especially if it's a new build and you got one that's spongy and it will go up, I bet if you pull that sucker apart, because they're only held together with like a snap ring, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just pop that ring out and they just fall apart. It's literally like a piston inside of a sleeve with a little metal, there's a spring in there and then a little metal bucket on the top. So it's really simple. But
and move all the way down to 820, which is John Wilburn.
I was actually just going to hit that one. So he's saying that Ed's Machine, which is another YouTube channel here on YouTube within our community that was at No Name Nationals, Ed's Machine was, has a fellow machinist down the street with a lifter resurfacing machine, makes a proper crown and new surface.
He should post a price on that. What does that cost? Because that would be that would be awesome if it's under $120 or say under $80, it'd be worth it. If not, those DLC coated lifters are worth it at that point,
Yeah, well, I think this is probably something that came out in about the 50s or 60s, that he probably has a machine left over from the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
And because this sounds like something that people would have done in the 50s or 60s. It was literally like fix everything that you possibly can. And then when you cannot fix it, then you go buy new.
Yeah. Well, there's also a couple other things too, is that when I was with another cam company, they had ultralight lifters for like the circle track guys when they had to actually run a flat tappet. So instead of like being 7-8 grams, some of those things are in the 35 gram range.
Oh,
and so, yeah, and they're super light and they're very expensive. So then they would send them out to get them resurfaced for that reason.
Yeah, if they're very expensive, that's probably why I didn't look at them, because they're at the bottom of the page, right? I'm like 2 spots down. Oh, there we go, $68. The old tried and trues.
$500 for a set of lifters is very expensive, and that's what some of those guys are spending.
Out of your voucher. Do you know what I did to get 30 grand? Well, because I was calling you on the phone. I'm like, dude, guess what? I pulled all this. 30 grams out of the valve train took me like 4 months to do.
Yeah, but I told you how much that's going to save you on spring pressures. And
Well, I went from, what was it, 220 pounds seat pressure to 125, right?
Makes a difference. Yeah.
And since it was a beehive valve spring, I actually lost nothing over the nose. It's like almost the same pressure, except for it's one spring, and then the retainer is like 1/3 of what it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Mopar Man 1978 says, when you resurface lifters, don't you have to get a different set of push rods?
No,
and that depends on how much you take off. If you're taking off more than the preload capability, you probably should be buying new lifters at that point.
Yeah, they're usually you're talking about 1 thou or 1.5 thou at the most as far as it's coming off those push rods. So normally, absolutely not. If you're taking off more than that, yeah, you got problems.
Move on.
You got problems.
Yeah. That's not resurfacing the lifter. That's buying a new cam, because I'm sure there's a lot of damage to that cam too.
Yeah.
Let's see here. It looks like Blake from Bad Tree has jumped in here and hijacked. No, he didn't hijack it. He's just here saying hi to everybody. So
move on down a little bit. See what you
got. Kevin's saying it's never happened to me, but UTG has on Bottle Rocket. He had a lifter failure. I don't know. First year and a half they was doing the channel. First year in.
Well, see, okay, so now we're going to talk about this. And this is something that I've known for a while, since the 90s, but I never really talked about it much. Small block Mopars, go back to that one so that way we don't lose that question. Yeah, stay there. So small block Mopars have always had an issue because the lifter that goes down the passenger side is the main oil galley, okay? Then it goes all the way up to the number one bearing, which it goes down, does the number one main, then it also does the number one cam, plus it also feeds that side. So when you run a high pressure, yeah, it does. And when you run a high pressure cam, I noticed one day when I was pressurizing it, I was actually trying to move the lifters on the passenger side, and I couldn't. I was like, what's going on here? So then I put a fish scale on there, and I could move that thing up and down like easily with one finger. As soon as I hit the drill on that thing, it would literally lock it up to the point where it was almost 75 pounds to actually move that lifter up and down because of the hydraulic wedge that was being created. And that's the reason why on my small block Mopars, the first thing I do is I go to solid and I copper tube that thing. So on a small block Mopar, the one thing I always recommend no one ever do is one,
my copper tube, bypass tube, right?
Well, do a bypass tube, so that way you can backfeed it. But if it's going to be a hydraulic camshaft, you're not going to copper tube it. One, never run high volume pump. Two, don't ever run crazy oil pressure, because all you're going to do is restrict the amount of lifter movement there, because the spring is going to have to overcome that. But remember, now you're trying to push against that on the camshaft, and it will literally go flat. and it will literally all the lifters on the passenger side will go flat. And I've seen that so many times, not just with my engines, but I've seen them on customers' engines. They're like, hey, all the lifters on the passenger side literally wiped out. And I was like, what happened on the driver's side? And they're like, oh, nothing, it was fine. And I asked them, what's their number on the pump? And they were like, whatever the word is, MV, is a high volume HV at the end of it. And I was like, well, this is what happens. So on Bottle Rocket is a small block Mopar. It does have lifters on it, and it is not copper tubed. So if you're running any type of high pressure volume or any type of thing like that at all, or thick oil, yes, that exactly will happen. And it is an Achilles heel with the small block Mopar, because that is the main oil galley that goes down on a block. It goes right through those lifters.
It's actually just like it feeds the same way as a Buick engine. And what I know for a fact is that, what makes it different is that the driver's side oil galley feeds no mains, and it deadheads in that galley.
Exactly.
Right? And so your oil pressure, the first places it's going to compress is right there in that deadhead, right? So that's where your oil pressure is going to be the highest.
That's right, because that is, remember, high velocity, low pressure. And then if you have low velocity, you have high pressure. So that's exactly what's happening, and that's the reason why the number 4 main on a small block Mopar is the one that will fail, is because the oil goes screaming across. Number 5 is the same one that feeds the oil pressure sending unit. It actually goes over and it has a different feed. Then it goes up, and then it feeds the oil galley, and then it feeds the number 4, and it's got to go down to the number 4 before it gets to the main. But since so much oil goes screaming by there, it can't make that turn that goes down there. And that's the reason why I back feed to the passenger side and then leave the oil galleys open to the number 1. So that way it evens out the pressure throughout. But then I also drop the pressure on the oil pump. So that way you're not running like 70 pounds. I'm only running like 60 pounds.
I do. I look at the rule of thumb that I will. Okay, so the rule of thumb, the 10 pounds per every 1,000.
Yeah, 10. Yeah, 10,000. Yeah.
If it's something like a racing application, I will make that like 7 or 8.
Yep.
7 or 8 pounds is the bare minimum, right? The bare minimum. And you can make it work, but the lower the oil. So the way I look at it is, the oil pump is essentially a parasitic monster. Okay, the higher the pressure it is, it's what they call logarithmic. Okay, because fluids don't compress, they do not. And what happens is it ends up just forcing more volume through there at a higher pressure. That's where you get the higher pressure from, right? So when you do that, it starts, let's say at 35 pounds, it's taken 3 horsepower to turn that pump. Okay. At 60 pounds, it might be taking upwards of 15 horsepower to turn that pump. But if you're at like 75 pounds, it's taking like, I don't know, probably 45, 50 horsepower. I've seen it to the point where there's so much pressure on a Buick that if you've ever seen a Buick big block camshaft, they got this gear that just kind of hangs out in the middle of X, Y, and Z axis. It's literally out there by itself. But behind that is a big plate. That's what your timing chain bolts to. And then on the opposite side of the plate, there's actually a thrust surface that fits up against the block, and it keeps the cam from going backwards any further, right? I've seen the oil pressure so high that it's pushing on that gear so hard that it'll actually shove the cam through the thrust face of the block. Yep. It's literally machining the block with like a 4-inch diameter dowel, right? Going through the face of that block. I'm certain that it's probably like it would have to do something that damage like that. It would have to be 400 or 500 pounds per square inch shoving backwards on that block.
Well, remember, it's pounds per square inch. So if you have a big surface area and low pressure, it still multiplies up, Whatever your surface area is, it's going to put that amount of force. You can't compress hydraulic.
I've had the Buick guys argue with me that you can go high as pressure as you want? No, I disagree. I 100% disagree.
Yeah, I agree. I disagree too. Yeah.
Well, so Michael Schmidt says the lifter resurfacing machines do exist, and they're used on a flathead Mopars on engine rebuilds. Dirt cheap, like less than $75 to resurface them.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I remember it being like $75-$80. I just remember. I remember it was about the time about half the cost of lifters.
Okay, so Dakota, it all adds up. But what I did was I weighed every single Buick rocker arm that they made, and I found the lightest set of Buick rocker arms with the most surface area on the shaft, because they're a shaft mount rocker like a Mopar. And when I did that, I want to say that was like 7 or 8 grams difference. But the big one was the retainer. When I went to that beehive valve spring, the retainer got to like, say, the third the size, because it went from like probably like a 1 and 1.8 inch. I don't know.
It's like a 1.2 something, like, yeah,
or like 3/4 of an inch or something.
Yeah. I remember when we did this math. I was actually at the other cam company. I remember doing all this math for you as far as
right. And I'm like, dude, this is going to be significant, right? Because it was, I mean, that retainer went so much smaller. Then the spring was smaller, but because the spring was small and the rocker arm was lighter and the push rod was chromoly, right? We could drop the spring pressure, and so then it starts working. All right, it works. It compoundingly works, okay? Because when you're talking a spring on a lever. So if, let's say, it takes 125 pounds to open that valve, okay? Well, let's just say it takes 200 pounds to open that valve, that spring. That's what the pressure is while it's on the seat. If it's a 1.5 ratio, it's 300 pounds on the far side of that rocker, okay? On the other side of the fulcrum. It's 1.5 times.
Yeah.
Okay? So when you start pulling all that weight off and you can drop the spring pressure, you're taking friction away, you're taking mass away, and the engine will rev so much faster, so much cleaner, so much easier.
And if your valve train changing nothing else but the actual weight that it's actually moving on the valve. Now, if I'm wrong on this, I apologize, but I remember every 10 grams was 100 RPM, if I remember it.
That's exactly what the math came out to be when we were figuring this out.
Yeah, so I remember it. So giving everything being equal, you take 10 grams off of the retainer, the lock, the top of the springs, the coils. Every 10 grams is an extra 100 RPM. And then you can actually reduce the spring pressure because you have less mass. And then it just keeps building on top of itself. So, yes, I think that's what it was, if I remember.
Right. Correctly. But I think we ended up, I pulled out 30 grams, which was 300 RPM higher in the RPM band it could run. And it was actually past the red line of the engine, how fast I wanted to spin it.
Yeah. And then we changed some of the spring pressure so that way it would RPM faster. So it was everything you guys could actually even go. You know, I remember doing that. Yeah, I remember.
If I would have known they had lightweight lifters, though, I think I would have thrown that in the mix too, and it would have revved so fast it would have scared me probably.
They actually, but here's the thing. Yes, we do. And well, yes, they did, but they were like double the cost, and they were essentially half the weight.
Yeah, I'm on a budget.
And literally, they are only for circle track guys because there's a lot of problems with that. You know, as far as because everything's smaller, so then you're going to have problems with bore, you're going to have problems with scuffing, you're just going to have problems with a lot of different things in general. And because it's actually cut away, you do save a lot, but your push rods are going to be longer because otherwise you have all these cavities that fill up with oil. So the only way to do that is make the seat height shorter. Then you have a longer push rod. So you're kind of robbing Paul to pay Peter, but a longer push rod is much lighter than a heavy lifter.
No, I understand, but man, if I was, maybe I should do a video on that next week. The Buick small block 350 has the longest push rods. It has longer push rods than a 455 Buick. Right?
What's the length? Is like 9 something, right?
No, it's 10 something.
Really? So that's longer than the Slant 6. Slant 6, I believe, is like
super gonzo. I used Mopar 440 push rods, adjustable push rods, threaded all the way out for the Buick 350. So they're long, man. It's a tall deck motor. It's 10 1/4 tall, or the deck on the block is 10 1/4. I want to say the push rod is like 10. It's like 10.16 or something like that. It was longer than the 455 push rod. That's how I can tell them apart when I just get a pile of push rods, because that's been my life for the past couple of years, is picking up people's Buick hordes and then just try to sort them all out. And I just hey man, do you deal with push rods? And it's like this wad of push rods in your hand. Hey, well, what's that for? 455, 430. I got a couple of nailhead push rods in there, and then a 350 Buick. And you're like, oh, okay.
You know, what's funny is I'm laughing because I remember when you called me, you're like, look, man, I just moved up to Tennessee and I got all these Buicks. What do I do with all this stuff? I remember you're just like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. You're like, I'm going to start building them and selling them. I'm like, awesome. I know nothing about them. Sorry.
That's fine. Max Wedge Stick Dashley says, why pump makes too much oil pressure? I'm assuming that means my pump. 85 with 3 washers in the cap. I need to shorten the spring. And get it down. I mean,
yeah, it works. I do have a Slant
7 or 8 pounds, and you'll probably see some output at the end.
Yeah,
ET wise. Ron's saying, what are your guys' thoughts on turning down main journals on cranks to reduce bearing speed and reducing friction, specifically big block Chevy and 360 Mopar cranks?
Okay, I'll say something about the Mopar cranks. I have a 360 block, and I run that in my drag car, and it's a 360 block, 360 mains. I turn that to 7,500 RPM. I have no problem with it. Now, there's a magic number, 7 to 7,500. Once you get over that 7,500 mark, then you're going to need to start really worrying about journal size and bearing speed and so on and so forth. But for most of the people that's in this chat right here that I'm looking at, I really wouldn't worry about it too much. You can turn them down, but instead of turning a 360 crank, just go get a 318 or a 340. They're the same type of deal. They sell spacers so where you can take a 340 crank and put it into your 360, but then at the point you're really kind of going in reverse. As far as my opinion, I say just run it. Unless you're going over 7,500 RPM, you're really not going to see the benefit of a small journal. That's just my opinion on it.
Okay, so I do know what I have seen with small journals. I never had the opportunity to do small journals at all on any of the Buick stuff. They all were like big gonzo, huge journals until I stumbled on the 300 Buick. And the 300 Buick has a 2.5-inch main journal, right? Which is like, that's what the 389 Pontiac had. That's what the early Pontiac V8s had. That was actually when Pontiac went to the 3.25-inch main is what caused Smokey Unit to leave Pontiac, because he's the bearing speed, the oil requirements, all of it was bad juju. All you're doing is making it worse. Now, what you do make is a stronger crank. The crank gets considerably stronger. Then you can have more stroke because you can have more overlap with that big main journal.
Exactly, more stability.
Yep. So you do trade off a few things. Some of it is the only way you can get a big 455 cubic inch motor, or like if you got a really short stroke, you need to have a really big bore. But if you got a really small bore and really small stroke, the thing isn't going to be very big, and no one's going to even pay it any attention. But that 2.5-inch main, the engine revs so much faster. And then the other thing is, it doesn't need as much oil to cover that bearing surface because you technically have a smaller bearing. It's still in a circle, right? So someone told me when I was doing the What If 300 and talking about the 2.5-inch main, and I said bearing speed, and I'm like, I referred to saying like a 10-speed tire, right? Yeah, everybody's pretty much at a 10-speed, and everybody in this chat probably is of the generation where you had a bicycle, and you'd look at the tire as it's going by, and on the 10-speed, the very top of the tire is flying. But if you look down at the spindle, it's barely moving. What was neat was this guy said in the chat, he said, and when you get close to the center, it actually becomes zero. It doesn't move, right? When you get to absolute center. So Bear Rose is saying that the video he's editing now is actually about oil pumps, pickup tubes, and the reason I wanted a short pickup tube for the 464 to make it more like a Chevy in reverse.
Yeah, I know. I won't spoil it for him, but I know exactly what he's doing here. And yes, because it's easier to push than to suck.
Hey, man, you know what? This is a good well, it's not even a question. It's a statement. Valve spring tech discussion in the future would be cool. And I'm sitting next to the guy right here. I give him a high five. But yeah, he's the guy to answer these questions. And this is something we were doing when he was working with the other cam manufacturer. I was calling him and picking his brain about this stuff for about 2 weeks. Because I'd have to call him, then I'd order parts, and then I forget why I ordered those parts, and then he would refresh my memory.
But here's the thing, though, is that you have to pick the spring pressure per the camshaft, because remember, the camshaft has ramp rates, and then you have a rocker arm, and that's what the valve spring sees. It's not just a one size fits all. You really have to know the manufacturer, and this is why I really enjoy working for Comp, is because every profile that we've done has been on our Spintron with different rocker arm ratios, so we know exactly what the frequency is going to be needed for that spring. So that way they don't cross. There's no collapsing, and there's no harmonics that are going to just break shit. It actually, we know it works. So yes, this is a legitimate question. But the only way to 100% answer that is that you got to know the camshaft, you got to know the lifter, the push rod, and the rocker arm ratio to answer that question effectively.
What you're saying is that it needs to be tailored to each individual combination.
Yes, because it's going to be different. If you have this, and let's just say we set this up for your Buick, and you're running a 1.5, arbitrarily 1.5 rocker arm ratio, it's not going to work the same if you put a 1.6 on it, because it's going to see a higher acceleration of valve tip movement, which is going to change the frequency, which is going to the spring, and the spring's going to have a different harmonic. If you go to a 1.7, it's also going to be different. So you have to know that. And then when it's tested at Comp, we test all of them, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.65 for all the round guys. We have different types of levels, how fast they are, and we give all that information. So that way we know that this spring will work. So it's not really a one size fits all. And I'm not trying to beat you up there, Michael. That's not the point. Yes, I would happily do this, but it's very personalized for the setup.
Well, and then when you get the one size fits all, it's because it comes in a combination kit, right? Like, yes. So this spring is meant for this lifter. If they know 90% of the variables, then it's not really much of an issue.
Yeah, that's right. So one engine's going to have a certain amount of setup, and that's why they say they know this is going to be fit this and going to fit this. If you're going to run this, then you put the shim on it for this. And so, yes, there's a setup for that, and that's the reason why we do it. Take all the guesswork out of it. Make it easy.
So Danny Boyd's wondering how long Ford 300 push rods are.
I have no idea. I've never done a Ford 300. Never done it.
What was the cool? I went to the junkyard the other day, and I got a header panel for my white truck that I crunched up, and I took it off a 94 Ford, and it was a 3/4 ton 94 Ford with a 306 in it and a ZF 5-speed manual. And I thought, how is this combo in the junkyard? I mean, this thing is literally the combination that would outlast time itself, right?
The father of time, yeah, it's God himself.
What a bad mechanic that owned this thing. I mean, come on.
So the length on that is 10.136 is exactly what it's saying. The Ford 240 and 300 stock length is 10.136 length. That's a long ass. It's long.
All right. Mostly old parts and rust. Professor P. Valve train weight question. So for RPM, a hydraulic flat tappet would rev higher than a hydraulic roller because of the weight.
Well, remember, all parts being equal, yes, but you're going to run different springs for a hydraulic flat tappet than you would for a roller, because a roller you can actually run more spring pressure because it's like a train. Steel on steel, it's super efficient. So, and also, too, the ramp rates of a hydraulic roller can be faster than, say, a hydraulic flat tappet. So, to compare those two, you could. That's a hard question, because I could say yes and no to both directions depending on how we're going to set it up. So, yes, technically a hydraulic roller weighs more, but you're going to run higher spring pressures as far as over the nose because of the weight, because it's a moment of inertia that you're dealing with. But you're going to have a lot more spring pressure that you can deal with because it is a roller. So the hydraulic roller, man, I got to tell you, man, that's good stuff. There's a reason why the aftermarket went to it, and all the LS and the Hemis went to it, because they rev so much faster. It's friction.
Yeah, all the manufacturers did it in like the 80s.
90s, yeah.
The rule of thumb used to be 30 horsepower if all things considered the same, right?
Yeah.
Everything being the same is supposed to be 30 horsepower because of the less friction.
That's right. Yeah. When one's going up, the other one's coming down on the backside, so it equals out the pressure. So you can literally sometimes turn it over by hand if you have a V8 with all of them. As far as going, I can actually turn it over because you're pushing up on one, but the other one's pushing down, so it really equals out. It's pretty easy.
So Bear Rose is saying, doesn't the nature of circle track racing have something to do with that? Drag racing is like hitting your car with a sledgehammer. Circle track is like pushing it into traffic.
Believe it or not, drag racing is actually much easier on an engine than circle track racing, because drag racing is just one lap down the drag strip, where circle track, every time you make a lap, it's 2 laps down the drag strip because you're going one stretch and one stretch. And it was hard for me to envision that. But now, I would say that personally, you build an engine for circle track, it will definitely survive drag racing, no problem. Because circle track, you're really beating it up on it, because it's not just acceleration, but it's also deceleration. Yeah, and that's where you start stretching rod bolts, and that's where things go crazy. That's why at the end of the drag strip, you always see people turn their engine off and they have those clean neutrals. It's for that reason. But in circle track, you're flooring it basically from the last quarter of the corner, or maybe halfway through the corner, down, say halfway down the backstretch. Then you're off the throttle and you're using the engine to decelerate. So I'd have to say circle track racing is the absolute worst on an engine. No, hands down. Besides the Baja.
Or road racing.
Or road racing, yeah.
Well, no, Baja has got to be the worst, because the motors will go zinging up to like 8,000 RPM, and then when they hit the ground, it drops down to like 3,500.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
That's got to be like instantly the hardest change in inertia and motion on a drivetrain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. Doug Narden says, Dad taught me this while sweeping the shop floor as a kid. You can always push more than you can pull. That has worked on way more than a push broom. LOL, thanks, Dad. Shane said it best earlier. I mean, like, it's better to push than to pull.
That's right. Blow and suck.
Dakota's timeout is saying, can you do a little grinding and filing to get weight out of your rock arms, to get a little weight out, or is that going to compromise the rigidity? Yeah, you don't want to do that, dude.
No, because you're going to create a stress riser. Plus, rocker arms are pretty, as long as they have some sort of equal weight. Now, obviously, when one's going up, obviously the longer side is going to always have a higher mass because you're moving it faster. But as far as that goes, you're really not going to see the difference and not going to gain anything by doing that, by grinding it out. You just would never notice it.
The best thing to do is just move on to like an alloy, a different alloy, right? So like your push rod, you take your steel push rod out and you put a chromoly push rod in.
Yeah, you'll save some there. Yeah.
Right. The rocker arms, if they're not aluminum already, see if they made a factory aluminum set. Regardless of what the ratio is, the aluminum is going to make them lighter. It's going to offset the change in ratio if it isn't very much.
And also, too, aluminum will have some sort of deadening device too, because it's a very light and porous material, so it'll absorb some of the harmonics that actually go through the valve train. The aluminum will absorb a lot of that. So, but there's a trade-off with aluminum. It does break, and it breaks really easily, and it gets hot and it gets soft because you're going to cycle aluminum so many times before it fails.
Yeah, and I used my aluminum rockers from 1968, and I honed them out with a wheel cylinder hone. So don't be me. But if you want to try something new, try it out. So, all right. Let's see. Max Wedge Dick Dashley says he's been debating on getting Beehive valve springs. I'm kind of sold with the change in the spring. Okay, so if a spring was conical, or was not conical, if it was a cylindrical spring will have a resonant frequency of whatever the spring is. Like, you need to actually take the length of it and take half the length of the spring before it's wound, and then you can determine what the resonant frequency is.
With the thickness too in the material. Yeah.
What's that?
With the thickness of the spring, did you say that? Or
no, I didn't say the thickness of it. It's well, okay. It is the thickness of the wire, and it's how long it is, right? And you can actually calculate the resonant frequency of it. But when you change it to a different shape, like a conical or a beehive spring, that actually changes the entire resonant frequency, because it'll only be like the resonant frequency of that little bit, right? And then it'll change. That's why if you ever notice beehive springs, when you see one that breaks, generally just like breaks like two pieces or two, I don't know, coils in, and then because it'll change in diameter and it changed the resonant frequency, and that's where those two were unhappiest.
Also, too, with a regular spring, you're going to get what is essentially stacking. So the spring rate is going to go up. Then when the coils bind at one point, it's going to spike and it's going to go like that. So your spring rate is not going to be a linear or even a progressive rate. It's going to keep stacking as the coils bind together. The thing about a conical spring or a beehive spring, actually, let's just go to beehive, is that it's a progressive rate. And they don't stack because it's actual conical. So you have much smaller ones, and then it gets stiffer as you get nearer to the bottom because it's bigger and bigger diameter. So it doesn't stack. So you're not going to get this exponential, little step of rate that's going to happen. So I just think they're pricier, but there's a reason for it, because you can run a lighter retainer, which then cuts on mass, and then your spring rate, it doesn't stack. So it's a linear, rate. I shouldn't use the word linear. It's more even as far as the rate goes, so it doesn't stack.
Well, I just look at them as like they're like if you've ever had cargo coils in a car. Yeah. If you go look at a cargo coil, they used to be a big thing in the wagons, because you'd take the wagon cargo coil and you'd stick it in a regular car, and then it would have the same stance, it looked the same, but it wouldn't compress as much.
Yeah.
And it was always because what happened in that cargo coil is they were already tapered springs anyway. Most cars have tapered springs with a smaller bucket and the smaller top than the size of the spring. Mm-hmm. But what would happen is the windings would get tighter in the center, and the further the progressive compression of them would cause it to get stiffer and stiffer as the further you went down.
Yeah.
So, but I'm assuming the beehives would work almost the same.
Yeah, works essentially, yeah.
So there's a lot of comments about the 306, about there's a lot of guys still running them, and that's the engine. I think there's a meme running around on Facebook that says when the last LS engine dies, it'll be hauled to the junkyard by a 306
or a Slant 6. I'm telling you, I think it's Slant 6 too.
It's true. The inline engines with all those extra main bearings has a lot to do with longevity.
And the smooth and how it basically how it balances itself.
It's harmonic. Yeah, it's harmonically sound.
Monster guy. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dang, dude, that has flown by. We're almost up at 2 hours right now.
What? Really? Holy crap. Yeah, 3 minutes left. Holy man. Hey, look, I'm going to say this before we get down to the end. If you had a question, we missed it, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. I'll get to them and I'll answer it to the best of my abilities. If I don't know the answer, I'll figure it out. I got a lot of people that I work with.
Well, and I have to say this is a must. Look, we appreciate you guys coming by every Wednesday and spending a couple hours with Professor P and I and listening to our dribble that we come up with every week. We do want to get some more guests on here. So, I mean, if you have some people that you want to see on here, shoot an email to Shane at slantdailygarage@yahoo, and we'll chat it over and we'll see who we can nab and get up here on the StreamYard, drag them out of their not so comfortable home, and put them up on StreamYard on a Wednesday night for a couple of hours. I do appreciate those that did send a super chat, since we finally got our super chat working.
That was our first ones. That was it. We've been doing this for a few months.
I guarantee you that money only goes back into making the AHRA better. That's all anything that's. I've never taken a check from this freaking association, not one time. All the money that's went into it has stayed into it, and that's essentially how it's always been.
And me too. I don't get paid for this. This for me is I do this just for you guys on a Wednesday. Dallas asked me, would I help him with this? I said, absolutely. Let's do this up. And we just made this thing go along on the Wednesday night chat. So, if you guys donate, awesome, because it just goes straight to the AHRA, and I'm cool with that. 100%.
Well, check it out. We already got our first input here. if y'all got Dave Vazard on here, that would be badass. Well, I'll see what I can do about it. I know that he's tough to get on live. Well, he actually can do it live pretty easy, but he's been battling some health stuff for a couple of months. Like, he was supposed to be at the No Name Nationals, if you remember, but he's been battling health stuff since then, since before then, actually. So, you know, he is a national treasure in our community. That guy will not be around forever, and once he's gone, he's gone. That dude probably is forgotten more on a weekend than I will know about engines, right?
Yeah. Then we know, and I'll admit that the guy's amazing. In fact, when you guys kept talking about David Vazard, I'm not good with names. I had to go out to my garage and look at all my books. I was like, oh, there it is, David Vazard.
The guy that wrote the book How to Hot Rod, right?
Yeah, literally wrote the book. Yes,
yeah, that was him. Multiple copies of it. And Destroyer Eric's showing up here, and we're literally shutting her down, man. So it was good to see you here, Eric. We'll be chatting with you here soon about some 2023 No Name Nationals. But until next Wednesday, Shane and I are out here. Make sure you get over to the AHRA eBay page and buy up some AHRA merch and give it to your kids, or just get a decal and put it on a lump of coal and put it in their stocking. Either way.
You guys will never hear me say this on my channel, but I got to say, like, share, and subscribe. Was that correct? I think I said that right. Like, share, and subscribe so that you guys can have this chat. And we're here. You guys are running something, get out there. It's going to be a long winter, especially right now. There's already snow all over the place. We're going to be here. If you're in the middle of like, what do I do? You can call us up, and if we don't know, we'll figure it out for you. How about that? SlantDailyGarage@yahoo.com. Send the questions. We'll get it from there.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, you guys have a good thing. Yeah, look at that. Another one. Thank you, guys. You guys have a great week.
Thanks so much, Max Wedge Dick Dashley.
Yeah.
See you next week.